And good morning, this is Mike Lodge, the business advisor. I'm glad that you've joined me. This is a Saturday morning, and I tell you, I got up this morning. I always get up at about 5:30 every morning, let the dogs out, get them going, give them their treats, and then I sit down and I have my journal, I begin to write. But I couldn't write this morning because I was just so enthralled with the sound of the birds. I mean, the birds were singing so loudly this morning. It was truly amazing. I think that every Saturday morning should begin that way. Plus, a good cup of coffee is good also. So I wanted to talk about conflict. Over the past few days, I should say, in weeks, I've talked a lot about inflation, about how we are monitoring and managing our finances, and how we are trying to live just a little bit better, a little bit smarter every single day. But with every single time that there is a dollar amount or a financial situation being talked about, in families, it creates conflict. Money always creates conflict. And we are it's going to get tougher. The financial situation in America is going to get tougher, and you and I, we've got to prepare for it. Financially and emotionally and everything else. And one of the issues that we have to deal with is conflict. I do a lot of family mediation, especially when it comes to the financial side of a family in the conflict that they have because of finances. There are many times where I have to sit down and I've got to mediate these different opinions on how money should be managed. The husband and the wife or the significant other have different opinions on what should be done. One side says, no, he's not spending enough. The other side is, no, she is spending too much, and it goes back and forth. Conflict is something that you're going to have to deal with during an inflationary time. Because you're going to have to make those tough decisions, and it's going to create conflict. Because one side or the other is not going to think that you're making a very good financial decision. That's why I always suggest that you make those big financial decisions together, not separate, because one of you are going to blame each other. But if you do it together, the only people you have to blame are yourselves. And it's so hard to point a finger back at yourself. But conflict is there. It's there. We see conflict everywhere. And we see how conflict really hurts the situation of different people. If you look at companies, even companies who become politically involved and they take on certain political positions, have conflict. They create conflict with their stockholders, with their employees. You've got workplace conflict. You've got conflict within the community that they may be taking on this political issue. But when you invite in an ethical form of thought process, which is politics, into a company or into your business structure, you are going to have conflict. Because not everybody's going to see your political position the same way. Well, the same thing happens in our personal financial lives, where we're making these business decisions separately, but we're not making them together. And when that happens, you're going to have conflict. The other part of conflict is the communication process that we use. A lot of us love to have our communication heard. And we want it to go on and on and on, and we go on. I mean, we have sentences and sentences and words, and it goes on and on and on. And pretty soon the other side is saying, what the hell are you trying to tell me? Stop it. That's why I always tell my people when I'm mediating or when I'm counseling these individuals on their finances is keep your communication to the point. Don't go off into tangents. A lot of times when I have people coming in for mediation, they want to blame each other. They have come into that mediation room ready to fight. And my responsibility is to One, find a positive thing that we can focus on and work on that. But the other issue, and the main issue, is stay focused on the issue at hand. Don't go off into tangents. Don't go off into pouty situations. Don't go off into a room by yourself and get all upset and mad. Focus on what the issue is. Don't go off into your own little world. Stay focused on what the issue is. And you don't need to I'm going to tell you that when I was young, and I was taking on all types of different types of consulting contracts. And I had one, and I love this company very much. I still remember this company because I was involved in the mergers and acquisition, involved in going around the world and teaming up with all of the different teams all over the place and getting them all coming together. And I had a boss, and he was a contractor there also, but he would always come to me every single morning because I was the kind of the ears and voice of the finance side of the company, and there were offices worldwide, and I would be talking with them. So my boss would come in, and he was very precise. Because he didn't want me to go off into tangents, he wanted me to stick right to the point. He says, "Okay, Mike, 25 words or less. Tell me what's happening. 25 words or less, just tell me what's happening." And I learned in 25 words or less, I could stick to the points that needed to be resolved with the CFO in 25 words or less and focus on what needed to get done and what I needed his help in. And so when we go off into tangents, we can go into so many different directions where our message gets confused. Our message gets bad. I mean, it's just really a bad message because we're using too many words and too many different things to talk about how something needs to be resolved. So we have to focus on it. Remember, communication process is the whole part of this financial stress that you are going to go through. So if you don't go and focus on the words that you're saying, you are going to have an issue. And that issue is miscommunication and anger and frustration and the key word conflict. So as we're going through this time of inflation and recession, because we're right in recession right now. The economic numbers that we're looking at shows that we are in a recession at this moment. With recession, there are going to be layoffs, and there are going to be higher prices than what you're paying now. Things are not going to get good. In the next few, listen, banks have come out this last week. Bank of America has come out. Other economists have come out over this past week and said inflation is going to last into next year. So you have a whole year's worth of frustrations coming ahead of you. It's just the fact. If you look at the economic numbers, we are in a recession at the moment. The Fed is going to raise the interest rates again this next week, it looks like, which is going to create a recession. Because what they're trying to do is get you to stop spending so much money on debt. Unfortunately, all of us are tied to debt. I'm not. I don't have any debt in my life. But the majority of Americans are tied to debt, and that higher interest rate is going to affect you. It's going to affect your mortgage rate. It's going to affect a whole bunch of different interest rates that are out there. And of course, when a business has to deal with higher interest rates to run their business, that affects us because that cost is passed. Who do you think? It's passed on to you and me. So we have that problem, and it's going to be here even worse over the next few, well, not the next few months, for a lot of months until 2023. My projection is that we may even go into 2024. And that is a big problem. So with all of this, you and we have got to learn how to deal with conflict, deal with our communication skills, focusing on the issues that we need to resolve in order to continue to live forward. Every time that we go into issues and we bring up the past, it accomplishes nothing. See, the point is that we know what the issues are. We know that our finances are going to be the issue. We know that budgeting is going to be the issue. We know that higher gas prices are going to be the issue. So you and I and all of our significant others have got to sit down and work this out together. You have got to sit down and work out conflict. If you need to bring in a mediator like myself who sits down with families every day and go over the financial conflict, we can do that. Conflict. It's going to be there. Address it. But address it politely and patiently and lovingly. Don't start pointing fingers at each other because you had nothing to do with this inflation. But you can do something about managing the inflation, resolving conflict, and moving forward. Listen, if you like what I do, go to my www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge and help me out and support me and follow my blogs that I do on a daily basis. We have got to learn to go through this inflationary time together. And we're going to do that. We're going to talk about it every single day. If you have any questions, send it to info@lodge-co.com. And I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Listen, this is a Saturday morning. It's a beautiful day. So let's get out there and let's do something that's positive and loving and together. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye.